Shalom Yesharella. First and foremost, I want to give all praises and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rucha Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessing to those La'akim that's preached the word in all truth and sincerity. Alone to Israelite foreigner brothers that are like the heathens. But the line and false side goes back to the nation of Israel. Which nation of Israel are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans through the prophecies and curses of Deuteronomy 28 chapter and throughout the Bible. So this is brother Yakal Amap of the video, and today's video will be entitled "Faith Without Works is Dead." I'm just gonna go on some precepts and Lord willing, you brothers and for sisters out there, be edified through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shemel Shai. And I'm gonna start off with the book of James, chapter 2 and verse 20, and it reads, "But wilt thou know, O vain man, that faith without works is dead?" And that's right, because we understand that faith and works goes hand in hand. They both complement each other. And when you read verse 21, it says, "Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he had offered Isaac his son upon an altar?" That's correct. Because um, the Heavenly Father Yahweh had tested our forefather Abraham, and he told him to sacrifice his beloved son Isaac. And our forefather Abraham, he was going to do it. But at the very last minute, an angel had out of heaven had called Abraham's name to stop. But this should go to just want to bring that out. This should go to show you that our forefather Abraham, he had works to justify his faith, and he was obedient unto the Heavenly Father Yahweh. It says, verse 22, it says, "Seest thou hast faith wrought with his works, and by works was faith made perfect." And the scripture was fulfilled, which said, "Abraham believed Yahweh, and it was imputed unto him for righteousness, and he was called the friend of the Most High." That's right, man. So our forefather Abraham, our righteous forefather Abraham, he was called the friend of the Most High, man, of Yahweh. Because he had faith and works, man, and he was obedient. And just imagine that, man. That's a hell of a test. For you to sacrifice your only begotten, not only begotten, but your beloved son, Isaac. Because our forefather Abraham, he had, uh, Ishmael. But that wasn't the seed of the promise. The seed of the promise was to Isaac. Which went to Jacob, to the 12 patriarchs, the 12 tribes. So our forefather Abraham, man, he was greatly blessed after passing that trial. It says, verse 24, it says, "You see then how that by works a man is justified, and not by faith only. Likewise also was not Rahab the harlot justified by works, when she had received the messengers and had sent them out another way?" Because in that account, in Joshua, Rahab the harlot, she had hid the two Israelite spies. You know, um, and that was she. That was faithful works she did. You know, and she ended up, her and her family ended up getting spared for those works by hiding those two Israelite spies, the spies of the land of Jericho. You know, so if the Lord did this with a heathen woman, how much more for uh his elect in the faith, man. That have works and teaching the gospel, and you don't think the Lord gonna deliver his elect? The men that's out on the highways and byways diligently week in week out, and teaching the gospel, praying and studying and fasting, being a good brother. You don't think the Lord gonna deliver uh his elect? Men that have that spirit. You know. It says, verse 26 says, "For as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also." Yeah, so faith without works is dead, man. You know, because in the last days, which ultimately the elect being saved is ultimately all ties down to predestination. You know, the Lord have chosen the elect before the foundation of the world was created. It's all about predestination, ultimately. You know, but in the last days, the elect they will have work in faith, as it says in Second Edges 9 and 7. It says, "And everyone that shall be saved and shall be able to escape by his works and by faith whereby ye have believed." So everyone that's going to be saved is the elect of the nation of Israel, because they're going to be saved from the wrath to come. You know, the wrath that's going to come upon this place, America, Babylon the Great. And they're going to be able to escape by their works and by faith, whereby, you know, you have believed, because the elect, they will believe. So works, faith, and belief all ties in. You know, all complement each other. All goes hand in hand. You know, it says shall be preserved from the said perils. So the elect, they're gonna be preserved. The perils mean dangers, dangerous times, Jacob's trouble. And preserve means maintain something in its original or existing state. You know, so the Lord is gonna have the elect good out here, man. The Lord said that, you know, my servants shall eat and drink, you know, and they should have an abundance to be merry, you know. Now it is written that some of the elect gonna have to die in the faith for not taking the MOTB to fulfill prophecy, but for the most part, you know, the elect is going to get delivered. You know, and the ones that died in Yahushua, they're gonna be risen up first on the chariots of Israel, man. So it's a win-win situation, but for the most part, the elect gonna be delivered. You know, the Lord is gonna preserve his elect from the said perils, and shall see my salvation in my land, because the elect is going to make it all the way through Jacob's troubles to see the salvation. And within my borders, for I have sanctified, which sanctify means cleanse or set apart, them for me from the beginning. You know, so, because remember, the Lord, you know, like I was saying earlier, the Lord has, Heavenly Father Yahweh handpicked the elect for Yahweh Shai from the very beginning, you know. So, you know, predestination is very important, man. Said, you know, it's about who the Lord calleth and chose. Um, just as the Lord chose Jacob from the womb over Esau, so same with the elect in these times. Romans 9 and verse 11, it says, "For the children being not yet born," talking about, you know, Jacob and Esau, neither having done any good or evil, you know, because they didn't do what that, you know, when they were in the womb, they wasn't born yet. Jacob and Esau, they didn't have no good or evil works because they wasn't born yet. That the purpose of Yahweh according to election might stand, not of works, but of him that calleth. So ultimately, it's not about works; it's about if you're chosen, if the Lord called you to be delivered, you know. But the elect will have in the last days, through the fear of the Lord, the elect will have works and faith, you know. So it's about, but ultimately it's about predestination. It all ties down in that, you know. So faith and works goes hand in hand, you know. And what is faith according to the Bible? Hebrews 11:1. Because being in this, you know, in this truth, you know, the works, it has to be mixed with faith, you know, as well. And this is faith according to the Bible. Hebrews 11:1. It says, "Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen." So that's the definition of faith. You know, the elect in truth, they will be hoping for salvation, you know, but they don't have the evidence as of yet to see it because that time hasn't came yet. But that's why they hope for it, you know. They hope for salvation. They hope for to get to be able to eat and drink in time in Jacob's trouble. You know, that they hope for the hedge of protection. And they believe and hope in it, but they don't have the evidence as of yet because they haven't seen it as of yet until the Lord makes it come to pass. So that's, you know, that's faith, you know. And as it says in verse 6, jumping down, it says, but without faith it isn't possible to please him. So if you don't have faith, you can't please the Lord, man. Because if you're faithless, that will lead to you being doubting the Lord, thinking that he can't deliver you in harsh conditions. And the Lord doesn't like that. The Lord likes a faithful man. It says, for he that cometh to Yahweh must believe that he is. So, you come to serve the Lord, you got to believe that you're a man of the Lord. You are of the hopeful elect. It's not with pride, it's with confidence. Of course, we always say Lord willing because everything is Lord willing. But when it comes down to a point where we believe, we got to believe that we are of the hopeful elect, you know, uh, with humility. It says, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. Yeah, because the Lord's going to reward those that diligently seek him. His elect that seeking him day and night, pushing videos on the internet day and night. Constantly going on the highways and byways, week in, week out. Keeping the high holy days, the Sabbaths. Applying Yahweh Shai, taking the low in this evil world, man, and the Lord would vindicate and justify his elect, man. You know, so and I was saying earlier that faith and works got to be mixed with faith. Let's see, mix. No, it's in Hebrews somewhere. Okay, yeah. This Hebrews 4:2 says, "For unto us was the gospel preached, as well as unto them, but the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in them that heard it." Right. So when you are preaching the gospel, man, it has to be. You got to believe it. You got to believe what you're saying. You can't just say something and you don't believe. You can't just prophesy the word of the Lord and don't believe it. That how foolish is that? That makes you very unprofitable. It's a scripture in the Apocrypha speaks about there's a man that profits many, but is unprofitable to himself. Or paraphrasing, so you don't want to fall under that. You don't want that scripture to be applied to you. You as you're prophesying the word of the Lord, you got to believe it yourself first and foremost. You know, so you got to have the faith. The faith has to be mixed in as you're preaching the gospel, man. You know, so which the men that fall away from this truth, that leave that forsake Yahweh Shemashai in the ministry in the gospel, then it was written that they would do that. That means that they wasn't part of the elect, because the elect won't do that. They will be faithful to the end and preaching the gospel. But just making a point, um, as you're prophesying the word of the Lord, man, you got to believe it for yourself first and foremost. You can't just prop- prophesy the word of the Lord and you don't believe it wholeheartedly. Nah, man. You got to believe it 100%. So yeah, I just wanted to make a quick lesson on that. Akim, faith without works is dead. Lord willing, I was edified, and till next time, shalom.